Right, hello everybody, and welcome to Drive Time Series 2. Now, you may remember a couple of years ago during lockdown, we did Drive Time for the very first time. 50 interviews with people all across motorsport just to find out more about them, what it is they do, their passion. And we've decided to do it again and bring it back for Series 2. It was so well received. Now, as you can see, next to me, I've got our very first guest, episode 1. Michael Fox is here with us. Michael, episode 1, do you feel honoured?
Oh, totally honoured. Yeah, you can't. There are no words.
There are no words. Now, as we said, this show is about finding out about you. We want to know what makes people tick in motorsport. What is their passion? What do they want to get involved in? Where are they going forward in the future? And that's what this is all about. Now, I know, Michael, you have some incredible stories to tell. First question, of course, for the people who don't know you already, I'm sure there's not many people who don't know you in motorsport. But for those who don't know you, what is your involvement in motorsport?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So, many years ago, I borrowed my parents' first camera and got into photography. And then some years later, I got into motorsport at a very young age, like 11 years old. And those two things finally came together about 10, 15 years ago when I finally realized combination of creating visual stuff, visual content, and motorsport was the ideal for me. Now, I moved away from photography full time, maybe 10 years ago, to focus purely on video. So where you'll find me and my crew now is largely at the tracks and pit lanes and paddocks of mainly the European Le Mans Series, the World Endurance Championship, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And we do quite a lot of club racing events as well.
You do what I love to do then, because I did quite a bit of pit lane reporting for the British Truck Racing and with the MG Car Club and things like that. We had a brief conversation, didn't we, actually, before we started to record this, making it, it's about the people, isn't it? There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that almost gets ignored a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, it's the cars are going to race, and it's great to see cars in action. But what gets those cars on track? Who burned the midnight oil the previous night to get the car to the track or repair it? As you said, it's those stories. It's the people behind the racing. That's really where the interest, I think, lies. And I think over the years, there's been more demand for understanding what goes on behind the scenes, what actually gets these cars out on track. What are some of those human interest stories that we so often just walk straight past?
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned there, of course, you're involved with sort of European Le Mans. You've been involved with club racing as well. And part of Drive Time is to get your opinion on the current state of motorsport from the elite level right down to the bottom. So let me ask you this question then, Michael. How strong do you feel the club racing scene is in the UK right now?
I think the club racing scene in the UK is amazing. I absolutely love it. It's really fascinating to spend a weekend at a WEC race, and then the following weekend you're at Brands Hatch for a Formula Ford race or a historic race or whatever the race might be. And it's a completely different vibe. People are welcoming, people are friendly, people are nurturing. Although, once you get on track, there's that sense of competition, of course. But in the paddock, people are borrowing parts and borrowing spanners and other bits and pieces. And if one car's broken, the mechanic from another team will go and help. I mean, it's just everyone wants to be experiencing that on-track competition together. It's just a really warm environment. And I think, when it comes to someone trying to enter motorsport, there are always generally aspirations. How do I get into Formula One? It's like the default question, right? And my view of that is, yeah, sure. If your aspiration is to get into Formula One, absolutely, you go for it. But let's make sure you have something to take, some value that you can add to a Formula One team at the right time. And you're going to get that value by gaining experience in all the other levels. So be present, go to those club races, learn what you can. People will gladly get an extra pair of hands on board, and that will start you on that ladder to the upper ranks. That's my belief.
Do you know what, Michael? I've got to thank you because you have teed me up perfectly for this next question. It's almost as if I sent you the questions beforehand, isn't it? No, let's talk about it. You mentioned Formula One there. All right, so we're going to touch on that, but there's plenty of routes to get to the top level of motorsport. I know Formula One is the elite of the elite, but for career prospects, there's plenty of routes to go down. So in your opinion, across the whole spectrum of top level motorsport, Formula One, Formula E, IndyCar, NASCAR, World Rally Championship, World Endurance Championship. I mean, other ones as well. If I've missed anything, it's just because there's a text limit on what I can write. Which, in your opinion, now this is best all-round value combined for fans, sponsors, and drivers, mechanics, with media, for career prospects across the whole spectrum. Now, Formula One would be so easy to say, but when it comes to sponsorship, unless you've got millions and millions to spend, it's a closed book. So there's other options, isn't there? Which for you is the best all-round value?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because these things have evolved so much quite recently, in fact. And the ones you listed off, I think, they've become extremely commercial, almost out of reach of many organizations that previously could enter with a more modest investment.
Yeah.
So whereas, again, aspirationally, if I had a company and I wanted to invest, if I could get into Formula One or WRC or WEC, I absolutely would, if the payback was there and I had the budget for it. But the reality is, there are many organizations out there who perhaps they're still testing the water a little bit. They want to get their name out there, but is it going to give them the right return on their investment? And the same with fans. Where do fans invest their time? Where can fans really feel that they have a level of engagement, a level of ownership, if you like, in a series? And I have to say, I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but I find the European Le Mans series is probably my favorite series. And I hear that from some of my colleagues in the media center. They all say, we love this series. And we talk about it. Why is that? Well, one, we're biased a little bit towards endurance rather than sprint racing, and I count a race also as a sprint race. So we're biased towards endurance racing, and the European Le Mans Series paddock, it's a bit like a few steps up from the club racing comments we just had. Everyone is very welcoming. You're invited to come to garages and speak to the team owners, speak to the drivers. It's much more open, and I think in terms of sponsors, they have a pretty good platform, actually, to get a message out there to a pretty broad audience. And of course, because a lot of the European Le Mans Series teams carry over to Le Mans, that platform can be extended quite a big way. And I think the final point on that is, there are a number of really good top-name drivers involved in European Le Mans Series who often trade off between ELMS weekends and WEC weekends and 24 hours of Le Mans, including Formula One drivers. I mean, I'm going to put one name out there, if that's okay. Nick de Vries.
Yeah.
I mean, just a few years ago, European Le Mans Series, WEC, and now he's got a Formula One seat. Very well deserved. Lovely guy. But that transference between the series is totally an option.
It's wonderful to hear that. And actually, I think I was involved with the 2 CVs as well. A couple of seasons ago, we did the 2 CVs. And I think, and apologies to 2 CVs if I get this wrong, and apologies to George Russell if I get this wrong, I'm pretty certain George Russell actually raced in one of the 2 CV races. So, there is opportunity. And when it comes to sponsorship as well, we often forget it's not just a logo on a car, it's accessibility to drivers, isn't it, to get their message across and things like that. I mean, a logo is just a logo, great to have it on the car, and it costs a lot of money, but they get a bit more than that, don't they? It's not just that. Well, let's talk about the landscape of motorsport then, because we're going through change. We know that the EV and everything like this, but things are changing, aren't they? How do you think motorsport, right through the spectrum, from club level at the bottom to the elite, I don't like to say bottom, but the lifeblood of motorsport, which is club racing, all the way to the very top, where are we going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's so hard to predict. I mean, you can only look at sort of where we've come to try and get an idea of where you might be going to. I do think EV series will continue to grow. I mean, there was an electric Formula Ford car at the Formula Ford Festival last year at Brands Hatch, as an example. So I think that is going to be an interesting direction to follow. I think there have been talks about electric GT type series as well. Tesla series, for example, that never came to anything, but I think it will at some point. I mean, the number of road car manufacturers now with good, viable electric vehicle options, it's got to be a matter of time before they get some sort of GT series together, which I think would be also a very interesting and hopefully quite affordable entry point for those owners. Formula E is, it's gathered great momentum now, so I can only see that continuing going from strength to strength. And this might be a controversial statement, but I wouldn't write off The internal combustion engine. I think the advances with ethanol-based fuels, for example, and others, those are also very interesting. And I think when it comes to arguments about carbon offsets and so on, I still think that there is life in the internal combustion engine. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's all going to go the electric vehicles way. I think we're going to find a fairly good middle ground over those next 5 to 10 years.
I think it's a great point to make, actually, because I've often wondered. I hear a lot of negativity towards EV. I'm not in either camp, really. I just want to see cars go racing. Yes, there's the argument for the sound when you have ice cars, going around and things like that. But I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think in 10 years everything's going to be EV. I think there's going to be a few surprises knocking on the door. Michael, let's bring things back to you. Thank you for your opinions on the current state of motorsport from club level all the way to the very, very top. It's so interesting to hear different people's opinions, and these are opinions. They're not facts. It's what we think is going to happen and what we think offers the best value. But you've got a lot of interesting things coming up in 2023, haven't you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I do. So last year, obviously with a couple of years of COVID, everyone refers to the COVID years at some point. But there was actually a bit of a moral tale here, a bit of I think a tip, if you like. During the COVID years, I lost count of the number of COVID tests I had. It was ridiculous, like 5 tests per race weekend. Go to an airport, you got to have a test. Arrive at the track, got to have a test. That kind of thing. It was ridiculous. But the important thing was that you were present. You made the effort to go through all that and actually get to a track and shoot and deliver and so on. And so those 2 or so COVID years where all that testing and all the mask wearing and so on was going on actually built a really interesting foundation for my business and myself, because being present is such a key part of establishing yourself and establishing a business in motorsport. You can't do it remotely. You can't do it by just sending email or whatever. You have got to be at the track, get your face known, talk to people, understand what they need to achieve, and then try and help them achieve it. And so, back to your question, last year was a fantastic year for us, and this year is just going to build on that. We made some really good. Created some really good work with some gentleman drivers in the major series. We did some work actually for another production company in the US on a couple of movies which are about to get launched also, which I can't talk about right now, but they're bubbling under. And we've got a lot of ongoing work. A lot of teams just want something a little bit quick and dirty that is a bit of a recap for a weekend or a recap for even a whole season. So there's a variety of work that's coming in to the point where we actually have to start thinking about which projects do we take, which projects do we perhaps put on the wait list. So that's all good. But once again, it'll be a year of 24 Hours of Le Mans, which is going to be a very interesting year as well, being the 100th Le Mans this year. World Endurance Championship, European Le Mans Series, probably again some Formula Ford, and probably again some historics. We'd also like to do the 24-hour historic race this year, which is going to be also, I think, another great event.
Now, there is one thing, one film. Am I right in saying you are allowed to talk about? Is this right? We are allowed to talk. Now, tell us. I'm going to show everybody an image. Tell us about this.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, so this was one of the gentleman drivers that got in touch with us last year. Lovely guy, a very experienced GT driver, and an absolute. I've never seen a more passionate Ferrari fan, or Ferrarista, as he calls himself. So Christoph Ulrich, he came to us and said, "Look, I'd love to put something together. Can you help us?" So we developed a shooting schedule for last year that tracked him at Spa, at Le Mans, at a number of off-site events in his office, in his gym, and so on. And we just want to put this story together, really, of him. What motivates him? He's a successful Swiss businessman. How does he carve out that time between running a number of businesses and his passion for racing Ferraris at the top level and actually being successful at it? So the thing about building a documentary is that there's no script. So you don't really know what the end result's going to look like until you've got the content. So there's always that thought in the back of your mind: do we have enough? Do we have enough to put a story together? And thankfully, he was great to work with, very open, introduced us to all sorts of people. The team at AF Course in Piacenza were amazing. And we got a really good story together. And he wants to potentially do a continuance this year, but that's subject to contracts that we're talking about right now.
Incredible. So how can people see this? When does it come out?
Yeah, it's out now. So Christoph is hosting it on his own channel. So plotterferrari.com, as it was on the movie poster. You go to that website, you'll find a link. And the movie's free. It's about 40 minutes. It's an extended short documentary. But 40 minutes goes by pretty quickly. But yeah, free for everyone to go and take a look at. Just go and enjoy it. And any feedback you have is always welcome.
Now, if you're watching this video on our YouTube channel, Live Sport Now, we will put the link to that in the text. So just click it straight through. It'll take you straight through. Do watch it. It is absolutely incredible. Michael, final question we ask everybody. It's a bit of a Live Sport Now thing that we do here. What we want to know is, what is the drink of champions? Is it tea or is it coffee?
So, do you want a short answer or just a slightly longer answer?
Slightly longer answer, because I feel like there's more meat to the bones in this.
All right, fine. So I always used to be a tea drinker, never cared much for coffee. Then I met my wife in America, and she's American, and she introduced me to morning coffee. And now she works at Starbucks. So I've transitioned. It's now coffee. And
I'm pleased you said Starbucks as well, because likewise, my wife, funny enough, my wife is obsessed. Couldn't have timed that any better, could we? Michael, one final question. I haven't prepared you this, but it's really, really easy. If people want to find out more about you, your company, or if they've got a project they think, actually, Michael might be able to help us with that, how did they get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Simple, raceflix.co, raceflix.co. There is a raceflix.com, so don't get confused. We are raceflix.co. And yeah, come to me. There's contact information there. I'm the worst salesman in the world. So I'm not going to try and pressure anyone into anything. I love to have a chat. I love to see what people are trying to achieve. If we agree that there's something we could do together, then let's go and explore it. It's as simple as that. I'll also be at, I'm not sure what date this is going out, but if it's January, Autosport International Show, I'm going to be up there as well, speaking to some people. So if there's a show around, it's quite possible I'll be there. If not, we're based close to Silverstone as well. So if you're happy with the Silverstone area, give me a shout. Let's go for a coffee, or probably a coffee, right?
Coffee. We'll go to Starbucks. Definitely. And to make life even easier, again, there is a link in the body of this broadcast in the description on YouTube, taking you straight through to Michael's website. Again, you don't even have to type it out. You don't have to remember it. Just click it. How easy is that?
Thanks, Ian.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us. That is episode 1 of Drive Time Complete. They're being released daily at 12 o'clock every single day. Last time we did 50. I'll tell you something, from the amount of people who are showing interest already, it could be even more than that. So Drive Time, if you are interested, you want to get involved, drop us a message below. We will pick them up. We want to hear from you. Michael, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, won't you?
Thanks, Ian.
This is going out after Autosport.
Okay.
Going out on the Monday after Autosport. But hey, if I saw you at Autosport on Thursday, everybody, it was great to see you.
Brilliant.
Because we recorded this before Autosport. We're not going to make it up. We recorded it before. But take care. Episode 2 will be coming out tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching. Take care. And until next time, drive safely.
Cheers.